All right, ladies and gentlemen, Barstool Backstage on the guest list this week. This is one I've been waiting for. I'm really excited about this. We have the host of the Alli Hagendorf Show, the former head of Spotify Rock, Alli Hagendorf. Alli, how are you?
Oh, what a beautiful introduction. Thank you. I'm flattered and I'm psyched to be here. So it's all good.
Oh
I
man,
gotta ask, is it Hagendorf or Hagendorf?
It's Hagendorf.
It is
fuck
Hagendorf.
yes,
It was like
dude.
a Philly thing that he was throwing in there. You know what I mean?
I didn't know, dude. It was a guess.
I mean, it's sort of open to interpretation at this point. I say Hagendorf, but it's kind of like anything goes.
It could have just been my accent. All A's or Agen.
That's
Right. Yeah.
Can I just say off the bat that you're out platinum recording us?
Oh, it's the
And that's pretty rude to come on our show and have more platinum records than even the famous Ken Carkeet.
I do have a strong record game. Here, I'm gonna actually go next level. Still going, still going.
Wow.
I just have pictures of my family and shit. This sucks. Oh my god. This has been one like an interview that like since I started the original podcast that we've had been like, who should come on? So we have so many like musicians that listen to the podcast and they're like, get Alli Hagendorf on, get Alli Hagendorf on. It's like an inside baseball thing. Get Alli Hagendorf on. And it's finally happened. So I can't thank you enough for being here.
I'm really flattered. That's so nice to hear.
Do you realize like how many people, I guess in the rock world that we live in, are interested in your place and what you do and what you know? Like, do you realize how many musicians are interested in that?
I mean, I have some sort of indication. I mean, I talk with so many musicians just like on Instagram or whatever, but I didn't, maybe I didn't realize the magnitude. So that's really always nice to hear. Thank you. Yeah.
That's been something we've talked about on the podcast before. I think me and Kenny were having a conversation a while back to be like, it's so funny to look at Alli's Instagram and see how many like famous bands will comment and be like, hey, Alli, what's going on? And it's like, yo, who's the most famous band you've ever had hit you up?
I would say the most famous band, well, one I've interviewed them before, but I've connected with was Queen. I mean, Brian May and Roger Taylor, it's not going to get bigger than that. I mean, that was one of those like out of body moments. Like I was like, what's happening right now?
How do you even respond to Brian May? It's like, dude, thank you for everything.
I mean, and here's the thing, because I really pride myself in my interviews and my prep for my interviews. Okay, that band has been interviewed, I mean, how many times over decades upon decades? It's sort of like, what do I even talk about? But I treat each interview almost like a research paper. Like I do a dive. Like I really spend time researching. I watch everything. I find like clips. Like I do a real deep dive. So I think maybe that sort of impressed them that I had done such a deep dive. But I got the two of them to talk about the other one, and they were like brotherly love. So that was kind of a good angle.
It's really cool to hear about the research that you put into all that stuff, considering we're an off the cuff kind of wing it group here.
I think that I think I'm the anomaly, the amount of research I do. I think that's not the
We're like, what's up?
Yeah, no, we literally bring people in and like, yeah, so what are you doing? That's the end of the research.
That's not true. Colin, don't sell yourself short. You do some research.
I do. You guys don't do shit.
You know what? Colin is this is compliment time. Colin is actually a great host and does a lot of the organizational and research and stuff. So you're a great person for him to look up to, honestly.
Well, the reason why I have to do research is because I don't have platinum plaques behind me. I can't skate by on things I've already done. I have to impress people now.
You're impressing me. I'm already impressed.
Oh, thank you so much. That's all I've ever wanted to hear. But you're here today to talk about, and it's something we were going to do this a while ago, and you were like, I have a new venture coming. I'd like to talk about that. You've launched the Alli Hagendorf Show. You've already had Tom Morello. You've already had one of, I guess we're kind of like, I don't know, rivals at this point. You had Gavin Rossdale, who we had on last week. How's it been thus far diving into more of the interview world?
I have to tell you, it's been an unbelievable experience to have guests, because I'm doing all the outreach myself, just like kind of hitting everyone up, I'm like, would you be interested in doing it? And for people to come on and be excited to talk and not even asking like who else, is going to be on the show is really, it's warming my heart. And it's really warming my heart. And, I am a lover. I really am genuinely a positive person. And I always want to unite people and celebrate their stories. So I think that I do create a safe space for guests. They know I'm not going to get in there and you know, make them really uncomfortable. In fact, I want to talk about what they haven't yet shared before, you know, so we have a great lineup. We have a lot of guests coming up that are not musicians, a lot of actors, because really the show is just about a celebration of the love of music and the rock and roll spirit. So we had Brock O'Hearn on already, he's such a rock star. I love him. So it's cool because you'll have Joan Jett and Brock O'Hearn, and we have so many interesting people coming up. I will share that this week we have Sheryl Crow.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Another moment for me to be like, wow, this is a career moment, a life moment, really, because she's incredible.
Yeah.
You just like stumped the entire group right there, because we were like, we have you, and then we have Gin Blossoms this week, and I was like,
I
fucking
love
pumped for that.
Gin Blossoms.
By the way, one of the coolest interviews ever, like literally one of the coolest fucking interviews ever. But Sheryl Crow,
right? I mean, she's in a league of her own.
What was that like?
I was genuinely nervous because I respect her so much and have been a fan for ages. I don't know if you guys watched the Sheryl documentary. I watched it not once, but twice. But she is just such an inspiration. She's just one of a kind, because obviously she's not just a singer or songwriter. She's a multi-instrumentalist producer. She's been producing her own album. She's produced for her heroes. She also is one of those people who connects the generational artists, you know, so she'll have like Willie Nelson and then it'll be Brandi Carlile. She just plays this very unique role of being that thread between the generations. And she's a mother of 2 boys. So of course I connect with her on that. I have 2 little boys. So it was amazing. And she was just as wonderful and gracious and humble as you would hope and expect.
I love Sheryl's story because we had somebody recently on talking about this. And it was kind of like she had a really poppy album that the label actually shelved. It was Gin Blossoms. They were talking about this.
Oh, wow.
They were on the same label early on, and they were talking about how their label really fostered long-term careers. And they said that Sheryl had a pop album that the label said, this isn't you. And they gave her more money and time to create what she actually sounded like. People don't give Sheryl Crow enough credit for being an absolute badass musician. She's a fucking monster, dude.
She absolutely is. And you're right. Her first album, which never was released, you know, they went through it. There was like a big budget, and just sonically, it was not who she was or wanted to be. And that first album is a big deal, you know. So I'm glad that it all worked out, because they would have set the tone like in the wrong direction for her.
Yeah, 100%. And I like the thing I do like about you specifically is you do have a love of a genre that we love that is in a weird place right now. Rock and roll has a weird kind of identity crisis. And you've been such a, I don't know how to use the word gatekeeper, but a shepherd of people towards the genre over the last few years. Where do you see rock and roll right now?
It's true. I do consider myself a rock and roll missionary. And my whole thing is to pay homage to the past. But we have to evolve the genre and look to the future. Otherwise, we're just always going to wear AC/DC shirts, which I'm proud to do, and I'm wearing one right now.
I just wore one to the gym earlier. I'm not going to lie. I just took my AC/DC shirt off.
But you got to. And look, I love my Led Zeppelin. You know, I love my obviously I'm 90s, like 90s alternative rock's my favorite. But I'm equally excited and passionate about featuring and showcasing the next generation. We have to, you know, it's like, you know, when everyone's like, oh, what kind of music you like? And everyone's like, everything. Like, that's not my answer. And it's definitely not just rock and alternative, by the way. It's not. I love dance music. I love like drum and bass. I love like random like R&B that people would be surprised to hear. But rock and alternative, I feel like it's like I have to wave the flag and help usher it along. I think we're in a great place. To answer your question, I think we are in a great place. I think we're in the best place we've been for rock in a long time. Like in a long time. I feel like when I first came to Spotify, it was 2016. I felt like we were in a weird place. And I felt like I needed to really kind of like reignite, not just the music, but the culture and the scene of it, you know? And my whole thing was, I'm going to showcase things that are either controversial or people say, is that really rock? You know, or wait, this person's doing a rock album. And I was like, yes, they are. And yes, I am here for it. Because what I don't like is when people are like, that's not rock enough, or It's, devil horns enough. And like, look, I love all of those things that those people also love. I think I'm also unique that I really do genuinely love the full spectrum. I don't really hate on anything in the genre, but you have to have an open mind and an open heart and just celebrate, because we just need to unite and move forward.
I have a question.
It feels like it's needed a bit of a space though, rock. Like every genre goes through periods where it needs space. Like I feel like country's done the same thing and it's having a big comeback moment. And I personally think it's horrible because they came back and tried to merge into what pop was, as opposed to find a new avenue that's more perhaps like pulling from the past. And it's perhaps good to have rock have a moment where it's not down, but it's a valley, and it can come back, and hopefully it doesn't, like, we don't see too many 808 hi-hats come into it, and where it just is like, we need to keep up with the times, and then try and like merge itself in a weird way with pop music or something.
Well, I think we're in a good place because there's so many different things happening simultaneously. So for example, let's take Gen Z for a second. We have Gen Z icons like Youngblood, like Willow, who are doing genuinely great music, and they are both superstars, so I think that's really important. And I do think that TikTok is a good thing. It doesn't replace. Now, it does not. I think where people get confused is because people have like a song that went viral and like, oh, that person's a superstar or will have continued success. Like, that's not necessarily the case, but it's a good means for someone who is very talented and who has been doing the work to just get them in front of more people. So it doesn't replace talent, hard work, or any of those things, but it is a good platform. I like it because it put Fleetwood Mac in front of an entire new generation, or it's putting,
well, see, can I push back? I've always wanted to say that on a podcast. I don't actually mean to push back, but this is more of a segue question to what we started with in terms of the impact that playlisting, that you saw kind of from the inside of the power of what a playlist could do, to where now you have algorithmic power taking over in a lot of ways. And you're seeing Spotify itself is starting to shift a lot of their focus to AI or like algorithmic driven playlisting. What impact do you think that's going to have on it, where you actually seeing, like, it's one thing for a person or a group of people to have an influence on it. For now, like this amorphous thing that's just receiving feedback going like, oh, this is big, that's big. Do you think that's a negative, positive, or whatever impact?
I think at the end of the day, no algorithm can replace the human spirit.
I want to agree with you so bad.
But you don't?
No, I don't know if I disagree. I'm with you. Like, I have a faith in a human spirit thing, but it's scary occasionally from the artist side of things to see what's possible.
To be fair, Johnny fears AI more than anyone I've ever met. He really does.
I think they're different things. Do you know what I mean? Like, the word music, there's music that's music product, there's music for different things. There's music that's a feel-good music, there's music that's like musical, there's just, I think that they're all different things and they all serve their purpose. The issues or the controversy is when we're all talking about it in the same way, but they're all different. So I think that an algorithm is valuable because it can introduce a listener to a whole new breadth of artists that they've never heard before, a lot of unsigned artists or just artists that are sort of similar. And then the listener can decide whether they want to listen to it or not. Right. But an algorithm is great for many things for artist discovery. But at the end of the day, a human who knows a lot about the music, I mean, think about it. If there was, let's say you love wine. I do. So that's why I'm bringing up this answer. If there was sort of a program that was like, oh, you like this wine, try this one. Okay, that's cool. That'd be interesting. But if there was a sommelier who I loved and trusted and they have a track record with me, I would much rather hear from the sommelier than the auto-generated, you might like this wine too.
There's a lot of interesting points that I think in there. One, I think there is a difference between the algorithm and the human influence, because how else will we find bands with 1,200 monthly listeners that have the most incredible stuff that an algorithm just can't pick up? Secondly, I think a company like Pandora has been huge in that algorithm of playlisting for a long time, and everybody loves their Pandora radio, which I do as well. Whatever their engine is does a good job of that. But I still think that, like she's saying, that human influence on, like, I think this is awesome and I think people should hear that, which leads me into, I have 1,000 questions for you.
I love it.
One being, most everybody pair your position at Spotify with, like, that's the best, most coolest fucking thing in the whole world, yada yada yada. But you were saying that you felt a responsibility, right, to kind of curate what a lot of people are listening to. Was that ever, I don't want to say negative, but like a heavy pressure that you thought about and was like, you know, what I say does matter, and so what I put out there is really important?
I never felt a pressure in that capacity because I had confidence in what I was featuring. I had a pressure that I wanted to help everyone.
Right.
And when I tell you everyone, I knew of every release worldwide that was coming out in remotely considered the rock and alternative space. And I wanted, and I did help as many and support as many artists as I could. I would create playlists just for another way to support, another place to support songs and to get artists heard.
Did you have a massive security team around you? Because I feel like you must have been a target for labels, like just like because I mean, yeah. Speaking like from Kenny, and I'm sure everyone in this room has probably emailed you at some point saying, "Hey, check out new release coming out XYZ date." You must have felt like pressure from people though to like, this is the song we're going with. And where do you find that balance of like, there's a lot of people to keep happy. I couldn't do that. It's like, it's difficult, really admirable to kind of to juggle that.
Thank you. It was intense for sure. I definitely had some dreams at night where like I had no doors on my house and people were like coming at me like from different angles all the time. And that I did feel that. But I always adapt an attitude of gratitude. And when I would get overwhelmed, I would say, how grateful am I that I get to be in this wonderful position where I can help so many artists and celebrate so many artists. And that's just what I would do. And I would be psyched that I had that job, and I would find art. And I would love to find songs that no one had heard before, or from artists that were independent. Like that was sort of my favorite thing, like being first on Youngblood, or, you know, helping Grandson get a record deal, or, you know, just like unsigned stuff. Like I loved doing that. That was like the most joyous, you know. Chad Tepper is doing great right now, like being the first person to being the first person to playlist Willow, you know, in her alternative music. Like being first is something that's really important to me and that I'm really proud of.
Well, I guess that's kind of a human element, that there is a pride. Like everyone loves being the person that tells, have you heard this? And like, no. And then you blow their mind with it. That's such a human trait that is obviously then valuable, because it's what's driving like selection in a way, like almost in a profound way. You should do some Jungian dream work on what that dream means and see if you can pin it on, because in all my reading of Jung, I think open doors and all that is label execs. That he wrote about that in the 1920s, I'm pretty sure.
I love that.
You are either a great person or a fantastic actor, because I could not live with that pressure of everybody looking at me and saying whether or not it was true, because I still don't know. Like everybody looked at you and they were like, this is the one person controlling the space. I don't even know if you realize that, but so many people who were on the outside looked at it and said, that's the one person I need to contact to make sure my dreams happen.
I can tell you that your email address was the most heavily sought after thing I've ever found in my career. And I got to tell you, I never gave it out once. I would also
it's true.
No, I would also like the listeners to know that every time I emailed you, you emailed me back straight away, and it really meant a lot. And now we're going to go into a little bit of compliment time real quick, because I just want to say that in the industry, and I feel like this is a general consensus, 50% of radio people, and I don't know if it's right to lump you into there, but streaming radio is kind of where I live. 50% of radio people just like being there, and the other 50% love music. And I think everybody knows that you're on the love music side, and it's been incredible to watch, and a really good feeling to know that whether you were like the gatekeeper, as some people would call it, we felt comfortable and safe with you there. So like, that's a thank you.
Wow.
It's true.
That's really the biggest compliment I could receive. I will confirm that I'm first and foremost a music fan. I genuinely am the biggest music fan. I love music. I love the culture behind it. I love the scene. I love the camaraderie between the bands, the artists, the festivals, the shows. Like, that's where I live. You know, I grew up wanting to be. My mother grew up in an American Bandstand, and she would like show me reruns. And I thought Dick Clark was the coolest thing because he was the liaison between the artists and the fans, introducing. And then I'm the MTV generation, so I wanted to be a DJ on MTV, you know. So I always kind of wanted to be that person that would hear about the music first from the artist and then get everyone else excited about it. Yep. You know,
that's great.
Always.
You did it, so congratulations. And the thing is, you're still doing it too. And like stepping into a different space. And I think it kind of connects the two journeys. Like, is there anything you've ever been either now or then nervous to showcase? Like, I think of an artist like Machine Gun Kelly, to where Machine Gun Kelly took that step and a lot of people did not like it. A lot of people were upset about it. And you kind of helped to usher that era in of Machine Gun Kelly and Willow and people like that. Like, was there ever a trepidation on your point to be like, people might fucking hate this?
I knew that when Machine Gun Kelly came out, that was going to be controversial, and I didn't care. I objectively thought the music was great. I think he's a superstar. I mean, I know he's a superstar. There was a moment. I'll tell you a little like a little like context for the Machine Gun Kelly thing. I went to the Troubadour, and it was the Limp Bizkit show. Limp Bizkit did a show at the Troubadour.
I tried to get tickets, couldn't get them.
And it was one of those.
You should have emailed Alli, dude.
Yeah. I went to the Limp Bizkit, the Troubadour show, and it was one of those nights that I'm like, wow, like I'm in my element. I'm having the best time. I'm in the balcony, and next to me is Billy Corgan and Marilyn Manson. And it's just like one of those like moments. Like I always take a step back to be grateful and be like, would 15-year-old self, like right now, like this is just like a very surreal moment. And then all of a sudden, Machine Gun Kelly is there in the crowd, and he jumps on stage and he starts rocking out with Fred. And I saw Machine Gun Kelly in a light that I'd never seen him before. You know, I was not really a fan of his music before. I knew he was, but like that. And he stepped on the stage. I'm thinking the whole time, if he was just born at a different time, he'd be like the biggest rock star. And I remember thinking that. And that was that. And then like years passed. And then when the music came out, I'm like, wow, this is objectively awesome. I think the album is great. I think that he and Travis is a perfect collaboration. I genuinely love that album. So I was like, here we go.
That's I like that. Once again, it comes back to the human thing. You saw him in an element before the product was given, right? And that stuck with you, which is something that I don't know really happens as much anymore. And you know, call it the pandemic or call it that gap in live music. Like, I don't know that there's that much, I don't know, seeing people in that light anymore. I feel like so much of it is just hand delivered already. And maybe we need to get back to seeing people in their more human elements.
We absolutely do. I mean, that's why for rock and alternative, the live show is everything. So it's like, that's why I'm from New York. I moved here onto the Sunset Strip across from the Roxy.
Wow.
To make sure I would go to the Roxy and the Troubadour, every venue. Like, I just made sure I would see all these artists, because being pitched them is one thing, but I had to really see them to understand what they were. That's where you see what the music is. Agreed. You know? That's why I pride myself in really knowing the culture and the artistry, not just hearing the music being pitched to me.
You don't have to list any names, but have you ever been pitched something really hard and just not seen it? Like where you've been pitched something hard by a label or by a PR or something, and then you go do your deep dive, investigate, and just don't see it.
Oh, like I'm not feeling what they're pitching.
Yeah, I'm not trying to get you to like crap on any name, but
not. I would say not really, because I'm also able to separate what I like as a fan versus what the listener should hear.
Right.
You know? Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
So I'm also able to confidently program and feature artists, even if I don't like them, because I understand the potential or how they'll connect with listeners. So it definitely goes beyond me and my tastes, you know.
Right. See, that's where you're so different, I think, than all of us. And that's why obviously you were the right person for this position, because there's so many music critics in the same way that can only write. I would be one of these. Like I would only be able to write about what I like, and I would either not write about or I would shit on everything else. And that's not a good thing for a music critic or for someone who's in head of a playlist. You need someone who's able to step outside themselves. That's really cool to hear.
Johnny would write 5,000 articles about Congos, and that's about it.
Dude, I don't believe in self-promotion.
If I created a Spotify playlist, there'd be 3 songs on it.
Yeah, I mean,
love Congos, so
wow, you're the one. That's great.
You know where we got your email from? This is a very inside source. Your brother-in-law, Adam.
Oh my God.
Yeah, he did a bunch of editing for us on a documentary series we work. And I don't know how we met him. It might have been through Kenny. Everything's always through Kenny.
This is amazing. I love it.
And he was doing some work for us, and he was just telling us like, oh yeah, my sister-in-law, I didn't even know if you were married at the time. I can't remember. It was a while ago. And he's like, yeah, my sister-in-law is Alli Hagendorf. We're like, oh, okay. And, you know, it's like one of like Colin's saying, like, everyone knows you. You're like, oh, well, how can we make contact here? Because we've got a song. Actually, you know, like no one can stop that going as an artist in their head. But that was our...
How many?
I want to take a second to tell you.
No way.
Yeah.
I love this song.
Okay, so then let me ask you, how many, because you're obviously super into fitness and working out. How many times have you been pumping iron to come with me now? That would just boost my ego just for the day.
I will make this statement about that song, about Come With Me Now. It's a go-to for me.
Oh,
I would say if I were to make a general mix for someone that I think everyone like a crowd pleasing playlist, I'd put that song on it.
Nothing has ever made me more upset in my entire life.
That is
nothing's made me happier is hearing Colin say that. No, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. We're lucky. That one's one of those.
That's a great song.
Lucky came out of the ether and clicked with people, and there's nothing we had to do with it. You know what I mean? Like we were there when it came out, but I don't know how we did it.
But that's when you know a song is truly magic. I hear so many stories about songs like that, and those are like the best songs that they just happen organically. They just kind of happen on their own. Like
get the ego out of the way. Somehow it does work. I need to remember that.
This conversation actually makes me really, really happy, and I'll explain why. Kind of because Kenny and Johnny run in more of like have in the past run in these bigger circles of like.
Fuck you, Colin.
Fuck you. Like the major label system, right? And I've always run on the other side of the road where I've always been like, fuck that shit. Let's stay independent. Not that anybody's ever offered me a major label deal, but I'll continue. And just always having this thought in my head. And as most independent artists do, and I have contact with a lot of them because in a way I'm fucking running in that circle. And it's kind of like, does someone have control? Or is somebody actually like sorting through this stuff, or is it all just fed? Like these playlisting situations, are they all just fed? Is it all major label bullshit? Blah, blah, blah. But to actually get to talk to you and actually hear you speak about the culture and the artists and things like that, it kind of shines a little bit of a light that there's still hope and humanity left in this whole thing. Like, once again, do you realize how many people like look at you and go like, this person is that important?
Well, I never kind of looping what you said before. I never felt pressure about, everyone's going to look at what I'm programming, because I felt confident in what I was programming. I did feel pressure from the volume of artists like hoping to get on a playlist, and genuinely caring. I think that's what it is. I genuinely care. I care so much. Yeah. I really want to help all of these artists, and even putting one song on a playlist can really, really help.
It'll change people's lives.
Yes.
Yeah.
So each week I would actually go through and listen to like thousands of songs. I'm not kidding. Like I really like I also think I'm not normal.
There needs to be a documentary about you, because that's like, it's a kind of like it's a sweet moment. I don't know how else to put it.
That's
like,
what I'm saying.
Because everyone's got this cynical view of the world, and then that you could easily, I'm picture, here's my Hollywood pitch. Like, you picture the scene, and like, it's you on a Friday night listening to like 1,000 songs by some indie artist. And it's like, that's a cool scene.
Now, I will say this, it is a beautiful moment, right? At the same time, I'm picturing the cynical indie artists sitting at home going like, they never even listen to this shit. It's all just major label bullshit. And then them sitting at home listening to this going like, oh, she did listen to everything. Our shit just sucked.
I really
That's what I'm actually thinking right now.
No, and speaking of cynicism, I got one more real question, quote unquote. A conversation that we have on this podcast a lot is the ongoing trend of, I don't know how else to put it, shitloads of music that gets uploaded every single day. Whether it's a good or bad thing, or it makes it harder or easier to find good music, quote unquote. Do you have any opinion on whether it's good or bad, or whether it's easy to make music, or like just the sheer amount of volume of music that comes out these days? What does that mean to you?
Well, one, I'm jealous, because had all of this been available when I was younger, I'd be a superstar right now. I always literally it's all I wanted to be was a rock star. I was in a band, did the whole thing. It was such hard work that I eventually I had to like get a job, and couldn't commit to it, because good old fashioned, when I was in a band, I would drive my friend's motorcycle to practice every night and work all day and then practice at night. And then you're like playing the Continental in New York City. And like, it's really just to get your music in front of people. So one, I'm jealous that this is an option now for people. But no,
you could just slide some of those old mixtapes into a playlist, and you could have that moment come true.
Yeah. Well, actually, I've been asked how to sing on a bunch of people's songs. So
wow.
For me. But I think that because the volume is so insane, and like every week it'd be more and more and more music. The good thing about that is the really great stuff really shines.
Yeah.
So like when I picture me like literally sitting on my laptop, like clicking on like every like thousands of songs, like picture me going click, click, click. And like most of them I'm only listening to like,
of course,
a little bit,
Yes.
So I would just go through. And then like when something would actually, and by the way, I'm working while doing this, you know what I mean? I'm like multitasking. So like when I'd hear a song that would actually make me stop and be like, oh, what's this? It would really, really shine. And then I would like do the deep dive. Like, wait, I need to learn more about this. Like, who is this? What is this? What are they playing? How can I see them? So it made me really appreciate the songs and the artists that stood out.
Who is the number one band that you had a hand in breaking, that just came across your desk that way? It wasn't pitched to you necessarily. Somebody gave it to you, and then you wound up jumping on that train, and then it wound up snowballing.
Oh man.
I mean, you have enough gold records behind you that something happened.
Yeah.
Platinum, Colin. Platinum.
I think that maybe the story for that is Youngblood. Now, Youngblood was signed, but he was, being signed doesn't mean anything, right? So he had been signed, and the label was like, I think you're gonna like this kid, like, like take a listen. And firstly, I was obsessed with the music. I thought it was fantastic, but then I did my due diligence, as I do. Okay, I love the music. I need to see what this is. And I had lunch with Dom, and we sat down, and he blew my mind. And I said, wow, this kid is an absolute global superstar. This kid is it. This is it. Like, I literally was like, he is going to be massive, like arenas. Like, I knew this from literally talking to him, hearing his music. And I think he had maybe played the Roxy at that point. I can't even remember the timeline, because he's such a prolific artist in every capacity, but I knew it. Like, I knew it. He made it happen. Like, he is such a talent. He not only manifested it, but he's a visionary. He made it all happen. But I knew, I'm like, I'm putting everything I have into Youngblood. This kid is a global superstar. And that was now it's how many years ago? That's 6 years ago.
Wow.
I mean,
that's awesome.
Holy fuck.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so I'm very, very proud that I was on that very, very early. Yeah, I mean, young blood.
One more question from old
I'm
Ken
so
Dog.
grateful for him. Grateful for him. I think he's so awesome.
One more question from old Ken Dog. Speaking of like your love for music, right, and finding things and being the first to, who are some people that you think the whole world should know about that doesn't know about?
Ooh.
If you had just off the cuff.
Oh my God. Well, that list,
it's a big question.
That list is like really goes on and on. So, oh man. So on my show, the Alli Hagendorf show, it's a celebrity interview show. It's every Friday, and it's going to be, the interview part is the main part. But then I also have my sound advice, and each week I'm going to feature 3 to 5 songs that you need to know of up and coming artists. And then I also have the Alli Hagendorf show playlist. That's like the companion playlist to the show. So if you check out the playlist, it's on every platform. It will have the interview and then also the songs from that week. So I'm using that sound advice as an opportunity to feature bands and artists of all.
Hey, Colin, do you remember when I suggested that we do that? That's so weird.
Penny, I don't care. I don't. I got enough shit to worry about. You fucking handle it.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work because I'm still like going through it.
It's a lot of work, and I really appreciate what you're saying because, not to toot our own horn, but we've had some big guests on this podcast. It's been great. We have Ice Cube and Black Keys and all these great people. But I always think it's so important. I want people to know what I'm listening to right now. We already know what the whole world is listening to, and I always want to push, like, I just found this band, I found this artist or whatever. I think it's super important. So I love that you're doing that. It's great.
Yeah, I think it's a really exciting time. Again, back to why it's a great time for rock music. And I said, because we have like, for Gen Z, we have like Youngblood and Willow who are great. But we have like scenes again, First of all, the UK in general has always been, the majority of bands I love are from the UK. It's like my sound advice. I'm like, I feel like, why is everyone from the UK? But I think it's just because in general that those countries support rock and alternative just more than America.
Yep.
So you're going to have that. You can go to Reading and Leeds and all those festivals and it's like, wow. It's just like, I don't even know if we have anything that's comparable.
No.
It was pretty insane. It makes me so happy. I remember going to Reading and Leeds a couple years ago. Again, it was Youngblood's first time playing, and I kind of went with him. Like I was like following him around, supporting him. But I was in tears at Reading and Leeds because I was like, "Wow, this is wonderful. This is absolutely wonderful."
That UK Ireland scene right now with like Idols and Fontaines DC and Sam Fender, like I've been preaching this on the podcast, just saying like, what are they doing over there that we're not doing? And I think with bands like, I don't know, like Turnstile and things like that, we're getting something here that kind of represents that. But like the legit fucking heart of rock and roll is still alive with bands like that. Like that makes me fucking
alcohol
happy.
There.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. Maybe they have better meth. I don't know what it is. They're doing something right.
Touring arenas and stuff with big bands. You go backstage, there's catering. It's like smoothies and juices and veggies and all this stuff. You go in the UK, that's just pub beer. Here we go.
Oh, I thought you were making an alcohol versus weed argument. I was going to agree with that also. Because I don't think weed is good for certain kinds of rock and roll.
No,
I agree.
Like
Kenny brings this up, though. It's a great point, though. As an artist, there's nothing more startling than the first time you go to a real rock star's catering at their show. Because the biggest show we ever did was we opened for Bon Jovi a couple years ago at a stadium, and we went from playing clubs where they gave us like crudité or like fucking, I don't know, like salami on a plate, and then the same week we opened for Bon Jovi at a stadium and there's a full spit roasted pig, and I was like, what the fuck? This is not the same thing. Like, where are we right now?
Right. Are you guys excited about Sleep Token? I really am.
What is Sleep Token?
Yeah, I don't know.
Token? Oh wow. Okay.
We're about to know.
I always assume everyone knows everything just because I'm.
This is why you're here. This is the exact reason why you're here. Curate me. Let me know.
Sleep Token's really cool. I actually featured them in one of my sound advice episodes. But so they have a song called "The Summoning." That's the song to check out.
All right.
So Sleep Token is like, I don't even know how you would describe it. I guess it's kind of like alternative metal, but they're so dynamic that the vocal is almost closer to like a pop R&B vocal. But the music is so dynamic where it's like metal, alternative metal, hard rock, but then like there's a complete change up. Then it's like literally like an R&B song. So it's so cool. We wear masks. Actually, I asked Corey Taylor how he felt about it. He's like, big fan, big supporter. No one knows who they are.
We just had Jay Weinberg on. We were kind of asking him the same question.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Dude, this is fucking awesome. I'm so happy this happened. Like, I can't say this enough, but once again, there was an air of mystery around Allison Hagendorf in my life. Like, you know what I mean? Like, being an artist that's working up this way, like, you've always been that figurehead for like the last like stretch of time, being like, okay, I always just wanted to know whether or not, and this is like such a weird thing, like, were you a real person? Do you know what I mean? Because you look at it and it's like you could have just been a computer. I have no idea.
I was a really real person. And that's actually why I wanted to do this show too, just so I can actually connect with everyone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like behind the curtain, and that was frustrating for me. That's not where I am. You know, I mean, I'm, as you can tell, I'm a lover. I'm a people person. I want to connect with everyone. So
you're one of us. Honestly, you're one of us, dude. This is fucking sick.
Well, yeah, it seems like a perfect platform for you to continue doing, in some respects, what you're doing, like you're saying with the sound advice, but then just show the human side of it a lot more. So now Colin can't have all his conspiracy theories about you anymore.
Conspiracy theories. I had questions.
You know what it is? I was proud of my playlisting, but I felt like I couldn't give anyone context for the songs.
Right.
So now on my show, after the interview, I do the sound advice. I literally just talk about 5 songs. And I talk about the song, why I love them, where they're from, who their influences are, like what lyrics I like. And then you can go to the playlist and just listen to the songs. But now on my show, I'm giving you the context that I always wanted.
It's like radio if a person played what they wanted on radio, because that's obviously, like, that was what radio used to be at one point. So that's really cool.
What this actually reminds me of, and this book ends the conversation nicely, it reminds me of the career of Carson Daly in a certain perspective. Like when Carson was doing TRL, you know, you really weren't getting his view into things. And then he did, I think it was called Last Call. It was the late night show where he would actually go to shows and take art. I found She and Him, the Zoe Deschanel M Word Project, through that. And they did Riding in My Car, and it was a live show from, I think, the Troubadour. And I was like, holy fuck, Carson Daly actually cares about this. Like, this is kind of what we're watching you. You're Carson Dalying right now. This is awesome.
Thank you. Well, actually, when Last Call came out, I was like, I will have a show like that. So you should.
Manifestation. It's a beautiful thing. So last question overall for me. You obviously had Queen on. You have a lot of people coming up, Sheryl Crow. Who's the white whale for you? You can sit down with one person, and don't say Billy Corgan, because we have our own opinions about Billy here. Like, who would you pick?
I've sat down with Billy. I love Billy.
Okay, so you're the first guest who's ever been on the show who's like, man, I love Billy.
Billy.
We have this running thing with Billy Corgan where Billy's come up in conversation like 100 times, and it's always like, it got to the point where I was like pestering Billy Corgan on social media to come on the podcast.
He has his own podcast.
Billy Corgan has a podcast?
He does.
Colin, everyone has a fucking podcast. It's 2023, bro.
Shut up, dude. I know. Okay, so realistically, who would be your white whale interview?
I mean, I've met him several times. I'm a massive fan, but to actually sit down with Bono might be like my mind might explode.
You could change the world with that. I mean, Bono has enough power to do that. Also, if you do that interview, would it show up on people's iPhones without them asking for it?
I hate that happened because a whole generation doesn't know how amazing you two are, and that put a bad taste in everyone's mouth. But I also want to say one other thing is that one of my favorite bands, also from the UK, from Ireland, is Inhaler. Bono's son. Which they would probably hate if I were saying that because they never ever use that or reference that. They are objectively awesome. Inhaler.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, they're an incredible band.
I actually love that album. That it's a hot take that everybody got mad about because that was produced by Danger Mouse. That's a great record.
I'm a huge U2 fan. I mean, if you listen to the early U2 stuff, I mean they're punk rock. You know, I mean they're an awesome band.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no problem admitting how much I love U2. And that's one. All right, what's a band that you'll go to the mat for that everybody kind of shits on that you're like, I don't care. I love this band.
Oh, I love Limp Bizkit.
Ah, good answer.
Oh, I love Limp Bizkit.
I do too. I can't lie.
I love Fred. I would love to have Fred on the show.
Is he still doing those jazz nights down on? There's a club on Hollywood Boulevard. I forget what it was called. It's like a magic club, and he used to host these jazz nights because he's super into jazz, like
really
hardcore into like really experimental jazz. So he would just put on these young dudes playing jazz, and it was the Fred Durst Jazz Night. I went to a couple of them. They were really fucking cool.
Fred is an interesting guy. People just don't know him, and
yeah,
they only know what they see. He's a very interesting, talented guy.
Florida,
I mean, we just had Nickelback on, and I feel like we've exposed a generation of people that love Like me and Kenny talked about this recently, but like, how many people actually still love Nickelback?
Yeah.
Like we were like, I fuck with Nickelback, and we got to like kind of like get behind that curtain and say like, yo, these guys are actually really fucking cool people. I guess you could do that for Fred.
Of course. I love Fred.
If you don't like a band and then you hear like an interview or something like that and they say something, you're like, oh, don't make me like them now. Oh, I like it.
How ridiculous it is. You don't really know any of these people, you know, and they're all just the little bit you see, and you're judging an entire thing based on like seeing a video for a song.
Yeah.
You know, it's just...
Yeah, exactly. One of the biggest takeaways I had from the Jay Weinberg interview we did, who's the drummer of Slipknot, was that he said everybody in that band is the funniest person he's ever met. And so you're like, you see this evil, demonic masks, metal, but then backstage is just pranks and jokes and fun. You're like, oh, I love it. I love it so much.
Of course. It was like when I found out when I used to do A&R at Epic Records, I was going to A&R Lamb of God, and I was so nervous. And I A&R'd the Lamb of God Sacrament album. I'm actually in the Redneck video.
What?
Yeah.
Wait, what years were you at Epic till?
My background's A&R. So wait, real quick. Do you know how I got into this? I think you'll appreciate this story.
No, please tell us.
Please tell us.
All right. So before I told you I'm the MTV generation, I wanted to be a VJ on MTV. So my favorite VJ was Matt Pinfield, and I wanted.
Oh yeah.
I wanted to be Matt. Okay, that's like what I wanted to do. But I actually went to college to be a doctor and graduated pre-med. But while I was in college, I became the Sony college rep, and I won Rep of the Year. When I graduated, I got a job offer at both Columbia and Epic Records. I knew that Matt Pinfield worked at Columbia Records. I said, just whatever the Columbia job is, I'll take that one. And I literally created a position for myself. I went to HR every day and was like, I'll do my current job, but also let me assist Matt Pinfield. And then eventually I became Matt Pinfield's assistant. And I became Matt's right hand, fell in love with A&R, scouting unsigned talent, making records. And Matt and I have been best friends ever since. You know,
that's cool.
That's how I got into doing A&R at Columbia, and then I did A&R myself at Epic, and I A&R'd Lamb of God Sacrament album.
Okay.
God Almighty, dude, this is legit been one of my favorite conversations we've ever had. I'm not gonna lie, everybody. I know that it's now, I don't know, competition. If you want to say that, go listen to Alli's podcast, please. For the love of God, go listen to the Alli Hagendorf show. Alli, like, thank you for giving us the time. Thank you for our listeners who had questions on things or like just giving a fucking view behind and the fact that there's actually real people still involved in this industry. We cannot thank you enough.
Oh my God, I'm looking at me, I'm like beaming. I'm like blushing, I'm flustered, I'm beaming ear to ear. This is beautiful. It's a love fest. See,
well, I'll tell you this much. Kenny's actually helping Foxtrot on a new song that we think is the greatest thing ever. So expect us to try and find your email and send that over.
Send it to me. I want to hear it. And also, everyone, you can always hit me up at Alli Hagendorf on Instagram and TikTok and everywhere. Yeah, hit me up. I want everyone to, and also comment on the show. I want to see what people think about it. So, great comment.
Alli, we can't thank you enough. Your seat is always open. If anything happens in the rock world that we need to cover, we might hit you up and have you be like I don't know, like a on scene correspondent. I don't know. But
great, let's do it.
This has been outstanding. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon. All right.
You guys.
Good to talk. See ya.